today's lesson is 12.5, volume of prisms. I know we haven't talked a lot about volume or prisms lately, but today's the day. So first thing we're going to talk about is a prism and what it is. So a prism is a polyhedron, which is a 3D figure with two parallel congruent faces. Now, I'm going to look down here at this picture that says prism right here. And, oops, there we go. And the bases, if it's a prism, there's always two bases that are opposite of each other that are the same shape. And usually that shape is a polygon. Remember, polygons are anything that have three or more sides. So a prism, and that's why it's called a polyhedron, is because the bases are polygons. And polygons is anything with three or more sides. So a triangle and up, and we talked about that in last chapter, I think. Triangles, quadrilaterals, and it goes up from there. And then there's sides around it, so like right here, and these are called other faces. Okay, bases are also called faces, so anything that's on the outside is called a face, but bases are what's on the opposite ends. We have a tendency to think that everything is always on its base, and that's not always true. Not all the time is something sitting on its base, so everything I have here is technically sitting on its base, but I think if I get to a picture down here, this right here is not sitting on its base. The bases are actually at the ends. So don't get in your head that because of what it's sitting on its base is its base. That's not true. All right, so we're talking about all kinds of prisms today. The next thing we're going to talk about is the word volume. Volume is how much space is inside that three-dimensional figure. So what's inside? It's usually always measured in cubic units. So when we talked about area, everything was measured in squares. Well, this time, since things are 3D, everything is measured in cubes. So that's why when we label something, it's yards, cubes. So how many cubes can fit inside this time, not how many squares. And we're only talking about cubes because today we're talking about 3D figures. Well, the other day when we were finding area of other things, it was just 2 dimensions, base times height. It wasn't 3D. So this is really important. Right here, the formula for volume of prisms, and it's always the same thing. So volume equals big B times H. Now, the big B is very significant. That is the area of the base. It's not the area, or it's not the length of the base or whatever. It's always the area of the base. So that big B could be a lot of things. Your base could be a square. Your base could be a rectangle. Your base could be a triangle. Your base could be a trapezoid. So that's the thing. The big B could be the area of any of these things, and that's why it was so important that we talked about the formulas for the area of these things in the last lesson that we talked about. So the big B could be many, many, many things. So I'm going to go to the next page. So make sure you have this down, and make sure you have this down, because if you have B, we assume it's the base, but it's actually the area of the base. All right, so here's an example, and the ones that have the square and rectangular bases are the easiest. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write out area of the volume is the base, area of the base times the height. So first thing, let's look at the base. This is technically sitting on its base, and here it is. So how do I find the area of that? It would be 3 times 4.2. So that's the area of my base times the height of my base. Now the reason why I have to times the height, so when I find the area of the base, and then I multiply by 5, that means that I can fit 5 base layers inside of this thing. So that's why I have to find the area of the base and then multiply it by the height, because that height is telling me basically how many layers that I have of that bottom one. So it would look like this. And that's going to give me the volume of the whole thing. Like I said, the ones with the triangular bases, or the rectangular bases, are seriously the easiest thing. And this would be 63 centimeters cubed. Means I could fit 63 cube centimeters inside of this prism. Okay, now here's a little different one. We have the volume equals area of the base times the height. So first thing we're going to talk about is the base. What is this base this time? This is a triangle, so we have to find the area of that triangle. Well, I know, let's just write out the formula. Okay, and so the base of that triangle is going to be right here, and that's going to be 6. The height of that triangle is right here, and that's 2, and divided by 2. So my big B would be 12 divided by 2 would be 6. So this is my big B times the height of the whole prism, which should be 7. So I know this is 42 centimeters squared. So you can see that the big B sometimes will take a lot of work because you have to figure out what it is, what the formula is, and then figure the area of that base out first before you multiply by the height of the prism. And I want to make sure that you know this H is how tall the prism is. The H has nothing to do with the base. The H is how tall the prism is. Okay, let's do this one. And I'm going to start the same way like I did before. Volume equals area of the base times the height. So let's talk about the big B first. Like I said, this one was not on its base, but this is the base right here. So to find that area of that triangle, I'm going to take 6.5 times 8 divided by 2. And that's going to give me what the big B is. So let's see, 6.5 times 8 divided by 2, and I got 26. Now, the H is the height of the whole prism. So I know since it's laying down, it kind of looks funny. But if I would turn it on its base, how tall it would be. So this would be technically how tall it is. And so it would be times 15. And I got 390 inches cubed. So being able to determine the H is how tall it is, the base, what do I have to find for the base? So if you do it and be organized, like I've talked about, it's very, very simple. The next thing I might ask you to do is I might ask you to find volume of composite figures. We talked about composite figures with area in its own lesson, but now they're going to kind of try to integrate it with what we're talking about now. So they want us to find the volume of this composite figure. So this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go back to what we did the other day. Let's see what we have in here. We have a triangular prism, and that would be this one right here. Triangular, and I have a rectangular. And I'm going to find both of them separately and then add them together like I know how to do. So I know it's volume equals area of the big B times the H. So I look at this triangular prism, and I know that this is the base because I know on the opposite side there's one just like this. So it's going to be 10 times 2 divided by 2. And that would be 20 divided by 2 would be 10. And H would be the height of the prism. So if I would turn it, and this would be on the bottom, this would technically be how tall it is. And so I know if there's nothing there, see how it's over here, I can assume that's 3. So I know the volume of that triangular pyramid is triangular prism is 30 feet cubed. Okay, the rectangular one, my base, area of the base times the height, so my base would be here and here. This would be 6 times 3. That'd be my big B times how tall it is, would be times 2. So this would be 18 times 2, and that's going to be 36 feet cubed. Now I'm going to take these two things, and I'm going to add them together, and it's going to be 66 feet cubed. So doing them separately like you know how to do, and then adding them together is the easiest way to figure these out. Now, if you're confused about what the base is, we can talk about that again in class, because I think that's probably the hardest part. The last one I'm going to talk about is this. So we're going to find the volume of this guy. So we have a little... what does that say? Little rectangular prism. Okay, so that's the little one. And we're going to do the big one. So let's talk about the little one first. So the area of the base times the height. So my base would be this and this. So let's see. So I say it's 2.5 times 7. Okay, because I know if this is 2.5, then this has to be 2.5. And then times 1, because 1 is how tall it is. So 2.5 times 7 times 1, and it'd be 17.5. Okay, the big one, the area of the base would be 4 by 7 times how tall it is, which would be 2. Let's see, so 4 times 7 times 2 would be 56. And I'm going to add these two together, plus 17.5, and I get 73.5 centimeters cubed. And that is how you find the volume of prisms. If you have any questions, make sure you hold them till tomorrow. and we'll go over a few more examples together in class. I appreciate you watching till the end, and I'll see you soon.